night at exactly 3 a.m., I find myself waking up in complete terror, unable to move, my heart pounding as if it's trying to escape my chest. It always starts the same way. I open my eyes to the darkness, and before I can even process what's happening, I realize I'm paralyzed, trapped in my own body. The silence is suffocating, broken only by the ticking of the clock and the sound of my own frantic breathing. As my eyes adjust, I see it, the same shadowy figure, the demon, standing in the corner of my room, its eyes glowing with a cold, unnatural light. But no matter how much I try to convince myself it's just a nightmare, the fear is too real, the chill in the air too sharp, and the sense of being watched too intense to ignore. I've heard stories about sleep paralysis and the so-called devil's hour, but nothing could have prepared me for the horror of experiencing it night after night, always at 3 a.m., always with the same demon returning to haunt me. In this video, I want to share every detail of these terrifying nights, the fear, the hallucinations, the desperate struggle to wake up, and the lingering question that haunts me every day: is it all just a nightmare, or is something truly waiting for me in the darkness? If you've ever woken up at 3 a.m. and felt something watching you, or if you have your own true scary sleep nightmare stories, you're not alone. It was a night like any other, or so I thought. I went to bed late, exhausted from a long day, and expected nothing more than a few hours of restless sleep. But at exactly 3 a.m., I woke up with a jolt, my eyes snapping open to total darkness. At first, I thought it was just a bad dream, but then I realized I couldn't move. My arms and legs felt like they were made of stone, and my chest was so tight I could barely breathe. Panic set in as I tried to call out, but my voice was trapped inside me. That's when I saw it, a shadowy figure standing in the corner of my room, darker than the night itself. Its eyes glowed faintly, and I felt its gaze burning into me. I tried to convince myself it was just a trick of the light, but the fear was too real. The minutes dragged on, each one feeling like an eternity, until finally, as suddenly as it had begun, the paralysis faded and the shadow disappeared. I lay there, drenched in sweat, wondering if I had just experienced my first real nightmare, or if something had truly visited me at 3 a.m. After that first terrifying night, I tried to brush it off as a one-time event, a fluke caused by stress or lack of sleep. But the next night, and the night after that, the same thing happened. Always at 3 a.m., always the same feeling of being watched, always the same shadowy figure in the corner. I started to dread going to bed, watching the clock tick closer to that cursed hour. My friends and family noticed I was tired and on edge, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them what was really happening. I began to keep a journal, writing down every detail I could remember, hoping to find some pattern or explanation. The more I wrote, the more I realized that the demon's visits were becoming more intense. Sometimes I would wake up with scratches on my arms or a sore throat from trying to scream. The fear became a constant companion, following me through my days and haunting my nights. I knew I had to find a way to break the cycle, but I was too afraid to face the demon head-on. Each night, as 3 a.m. approached, my anxiety grew, and I wondered if I would ever sleep peacefully again. By the end of the first week, the demon's presence had become almost routine, but that didn't make it any less terrifying. Every night I would wake up paralyzed, unable to move or speak, and there it would be, standing in the corner, watching me with those cold, glowing eyes. Sometimes it would move closer, its form flickering in the darkness, and I could feel the temperature in the room drop. My breath would become visible, and I would shiver uncontrollably, even under the covers. The demon never spoke, never made a sound, but its silence was more frightening than any scream. I tried everything I could think of to protect myself, sleeping with the lights on, playing music, even praying, but nothing worked. The demon always returned, always at 3 a.m., always watching. I started to wonder if I was losing my mind, if the lack of sleep and constant fear were making me hallucinate. But the fear was too real, the experiences too vivid to be dismissed as mere dreams. I knew I had to find a way to fight back, but I didn't know where to start. The worst part of every encounter was the feeling of being completely helpless. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't move a muscle. My mind would scream at my body to get up, to run, to do anything, but nothing happened. I was trapped, a prisoner in my own skin, forced to watch as the demon stared me down. Sometimes I would focus all my energy on moving just one finger, hoping that if I could break the paralysis, the nightmare would end. But the harder I tried, the more exhausted I became, and the more powerful the demon seemed to grow. I could feel its presence pressing down on me, making it harder to breathe, harder to think. The fear was suffocating, and I started to wonder if I would ever wake up. I tried to remember stories I'd heard about sleep paralysis, about people who had managed to break free, but in the moment, all I could do was wait and hope. Each night, the struggle became more intense, and I began to fear that one day I might not be able to wake up at all. As the nights went on, the experiences became more surreal and terrifying. I started to hear whispers in the darkness, voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Sometimes they would call my name, other times they would speak in languages I didn't understand. The shadows in the room would twist and shift, forming faces that leered at me from the walls. I saw things that couldn't possibly be real, hands reaching out from under the bed, eyes blinking in the darkness, shapes moving just out of sight. The demon's presence grew stronger, and I could feel it inside my mind, planting thoughts and fears that weren't my own. I began to question my sanity, wondering if I was losing touch with reality. The line between dream and waking life blurred, and I found myself dreading sleep more and more. The whispers became a constant background noise, a reminder that I was never truly alone. I knew I had to find a way to break free, but the fear was overwhelming, and the demon seemed to feed on my terror. Desperate for relief, I turned to the internet, searching for stories and advice from others who had experienced sleep paralysis. I found forums and support groups filled with people who described encounters eerily similar to mine, waking up at 3 a.m., seeing shadowy figures, feeling paralyzed and terrified. Some people claimed to have found relief through meditation, prayer, or changing their sleep habits, while others said nothing had worked for them. I tried everything I could, sleeping in different positions, setting alarms to wake myself before 3 a.m., even burning sage and reciting protective prayers. But no matter what I did, the demon always returned. I reached out to a few people online, hoping for advice or comfort, but their stories only made me more afraid. Some said the demon was a manifestation of my own fears, while others believed it was something supernatural, a real entity that preyed on vulnerable souls. The more I learned, the more confused and frightened I became. I realized that I might never find a clear answer, but I refused to give up hope. One night, after weeks of torment, I reached my breaking point. I went to bed dreading what was to come, but determined to face the demon head-on. As the clock struck 3 a.m., I felt the familiar paralysis set in, and the demon appeared in the corner, its eyes burning brighter than ever. This time, it moved closer, its form becoming more solid, more real. I could feel its breath on my face, cold and foul, and I knew I had to do something. Summoning every ounce of willpower, I focused on moving my hand, my toes, anything. I screamed inside my mind, refusing to let the demon win. For what felt like hours, I fought against the paralysis, my body trembling with effort. Finally, with a sudden jolt, I broke free, sitting up in bed, gasping for air. The demon vanished, but the fear remained. I realized that I had survived the worst night of my life, but I also knew that the battle was far from over. In the days and weeks that followed, the fear lingered. I found myself jumping at shadows, unable to sleep without the lights on, always watching the clock as it crept toward 3 a.m. The demon didn't return every night, but the memory of its visits haunted me. I struggled to explain what had happened to friends and family, most of whom dismissed it as just a bad dream. But I knew the truth. I had faced something real, something that existed in the space between sleep and waking. The experience changed me, making me more aware of the mysteries and dangers that lurk in the darkness. I still have nights when I wake up at 3 a.m., heart pounding, afraid to open my eyes. But I also know that I'm not alone. There are others out there who have faced the same terror, who understand what it's like to be trapped in a nightmare. Sharing my story has helped me find some peace, and I hope it helps others too. If you've ever experienced sleep paralysis or seen a demon in the darkness, know that you're not alone and that together we can face our fears. As I look back on these nights, I realize that the fear of the unknown can be more powerful than anything we face in the real world. Whether the demon in the corner was a product of my imagination or something truly supernatural, the terror I felt was real, and it changed the way I viewed darkness forever. If you've ever woken up at 3 a.m., paralyzed and afraid, you know how lonely and helpless it can feel, but you're not alone. Countless others have faced the same nightmares, the same shadows, and the same questions that never seem to have answers. I hope that by sharing my story, I can help someone else feel a little less alone in their own struggle. If you have your own true scary sleep nightmare stories, please share them in the comments below. I read everyone. Don't forget to subscribe for more real horror stories and nightmares every week. And remember, next time you wake up in the middle of the night and see something in the corner, don't be too quick to dismiss it as just a dream. Sometimes the things we fear most are the ones that are watching us when we think we're all alone.